What I have here is the Sony Xperia Z3 tablet compact. This tablet was originally announced and released back in 2014, making the design almost a decade old. I bought this tablet a few months after it launched and I've owned it ever since. This was a time when tablets were really growing in popularity, and it felt like every hardware manufacturer was rushing to bring out their own. Sony was no stranger to the tablet market at this point, but the Z3 tablet compact did mark the final smaller form factor tablet that they brought to market. And indeed, the Z4 tablet, which followed this one, was the last tablet that they released. It's fair to say that I'm a big fan of this tablet, and it's been heavily used over the time that I've owned it. Official Android support ended with Android 6 Marshmallow. Though using a custom ROM, it's possible to get all the way up to Android 11, which is what I'm running here, and I'm running the Android 11 based Lineage OS on this particular tablet. Newer tablets just don't seem to match this hardware wise. I love the small form factor, and the quality of the screen is still excellent. While of course the CPU and GPU are outdated these days, it's still more than enough for what I use the tablet for. Newer small form factor tablets, such as the Galaxy Tab A9, simply can't match the screen of the Z3 tablet compact. And it's why, despite the aging battery and needing to be charged fairly regularly these days, I have no intention of replacing it anytime soon. But of course, I wouldn't be making a repair video if the tablet was working perfectly. And my tablet has developed a minor but quite irritating fault, which I'm hoping to be able to fix. The issue with this tablet is that the power button is no longer functional. Now, this isn't as big of a problem as it might initially sound, as to wake the tablet I can simply double tap the screen. It's also possible to bring up the power menu by pressing the volume up button, though this does actually cause the tablet to freeze after about 30 seconds and automatically reboot. I believe what's happening is that the tablet believes the power button is constantly being pressed, and that's despite the physical button not being pressed in. In addition, turning the tablet off completely is essentially impossible, because as soon as it's turned off, it will turn itself back on. This is even true when the tablet is out of charge, where it will constantly keep trying to turn itself on and displaying the dead battery icon. As you can imagine, this definitely has a detrimental impact on the battery life. It's definitely not an issue with the physical button, I can feel it pressing in just fine, which indicates that there's probably some kind of deterioration of the PCB that actually connects the buttons to the tablet motherboard. Fortunately, I found replacements for this available on AliExpress, so I decided to order one and have a go at seeing if I can replace it. To gain access to the board, I'm going to need to open up the tablet, and that requires the screen to be removed. Now, typically you'll find that people will heat up the screens before trying to remove them, and this is to try and soften the adhesive that's holding the screen in place. But I plan to try and avoid doing that if possible. Instead, I've got these very thin, flexible screen removers, which I'm hoping will be enough to slice through the adhesive without the need to use heat. There can't be that much adhesive holding the screen in place, so hopefully just using this tool is going to be enough. I've never used one of these before, but they certainly feel very flexible, so I'm quite hopeful that they'll be enough to do the job without damaging the screen. I'm going to start by using the little slot at the bottom of the screen, which is used for the speaker output, where there's a bit of a gap that you can get it in just to try and get it started. I'm not sure how far to push it in, so I'm trying not to push it in too far, as I'm not sure what components we're going to find on the other side. But it does seem to be sliding under the screen. It might just take a couple of goes to fully loosen the adhesive that's under there. Okay, so actually it seems to be sliding under quite easily. I don't know whether it's just because the adhesive's quite thin, or maybe it's just the age of the tablet. It's not as strong as it once would have been. But so far this seems to be going fairly well, so I'm going to carry on all the way around the rest of the tablet, and hopefully the screen should then come off quite easily. The screen's mostly loose now, so I'm just going to try and gently pull up on the screen to free it completely from the tablet housing. You've got to be careful when doing this because the screen is still attached to the tablet motherboard, and you don't want to break or bend the cable that connects it. With the screen now free from the tablet housing, we can see what looks like a little cover over the screen connector, and it also looks like the power and volume board is connected under here as well. So to gain access to this, I'm going to have to try and remove this cover and hope that it comes away quite easily. Okay, I was worried this cover might have been glued in place, but actually it's only loosely clipped in, so that was really easy to remove. I can't quite tell how this button board connector is supposed to be removed. I'm not sure if you have to slide part of it forward or if you have to lift part of it up, like a flap, to actually loosen the connector. So what I'm going to do for now is I'm just going to pull this one out, and I'll figure out this connector when I need to plug in the new one. Looking more closely at the button board, it looks like there's a plastic piece that's holding it in position, which will need to be removed to free the board. I'm just going to try and get a spudger in here to try and pull it upwards and just see what happens. It's not the easiest to get under there, but it is definitely starting to come out. I'm just going to cut away here because during the process of doing this, I bought a digital microscope. So here we can see a closer up view of the clip and how I managed to lift it out of position. This might also be useful later on when trying to put it back in place. With that clip gone, the button board is really easy to remove. And here I've got the replacement ready to slot into position. It's easy to get that in place, but I think this clip is going to be quite tricky to get into position correctly. And it's important it is in correctly because without this the buttons won't press in properly. I'm just going to cut away to that close-up again because I think it's better to see what it's supposed to look like in position than to watch me fiddling around for 20 minutes trying to get it in correctly. And here's a look at it from another angle. The board and clip are now in place, so now it's time to plug in the cable. Looking more closely at this connector, first of all you'll see that I did manage to damage it earlier on when removing the display cable. The plastic was quite brittle, so it did come off quite easily, though fortunately the connector is still usable. To unlock the connector you need to lift up the white plastic tab. From there you'll be able to slot the cable into position. Just remember to lock the tab back down afterwards. The screen connector should go in very easily, so it just pushes into place. I'm not going to tape the screen down at this point because I plan to look for a replacement battery in the near future. And even if I was planning to secure it down, it's definitely better to test it beforehand to save having to open it back up again. Let's see first of all if I can turn the tablet on with the power button. And we can see that seems to have worked, so let's let it boot up and I'll just check that the volume controls are now working correctly. and after a quick check it does seem that the volume controls are also now working. So that is how to replace the power and volume controls on a Z3 tablet compact. While it's looking a bit worse for wear these days, the tablet is now fully functional again, and if I can find a replacement battery, I'll look to replace that in the near future as well. I plan to use this tablet for as long as it keeps working, and with this button board replacement I should be able to get a few more years out of it. I hope you like this video, thank you very much for watching, and be sure to stick around for the next one.